The foundation of America has always been this idea of religious liberty. That is what America was based on. Religious discrimination in the military goes into things like forbidding people to invoke the name of their God. It's going to start there, and we see the writing on the wall that it's spreading. We are living under a religious society. It's the religion of socialism. But because they can't force it on us to use the institutions, and what we have right now is really, under cancel culture, like a new inquisition, essentially.
Hey guys, welcome back to National Religious Broadcasters, Standing for Freedom Centers here, and we're joined by a good friend over at the Epic Times, oftentimes neighbors at these things, Joshua Phillips.
That's
good
right.
to see you.
That's right. We're neighbors. We're right around the other side over here. Yeah.
How many times have we done that though? It's pretty often.
I think it's happened a few times now. Yeah.
I appreciate everything that you guys are doing over at Epic Times.
It's mutual.
It's really amazing. You guys are uncovering a lot of things that are going on, both internationally and domestically. One thing that is at the forefront right now, that COVID sort of awakened everybody to the reality that a government that can basically take away your rights of speech, and then mandate to get a vaccine, force you to inject something into your body that is potentially harmful, not in every case, but is potentially harmful, goes against conscience, goes against religious liberty. So we have a lot of people in Department of Defense who put on the uniform, they take the oath, they swear to defend America against enemies foreign and domestic, and they're being forced to violate their conscience, to violate their religious liberty, and in order to get the vaccine. Tell us about what you've uncovered.
So I recently did a documentary, special feature called The Pentagons War on Religion. It's currently on our platform Epoch TV. It's epochtv.com. And we got a couple whistleblowers to step forward. One of them was a lieutenant colonel, Air Force Reserve. The other one was a major Air Force Reserve, both of whom are nearing retirement, and both of whom are basically ready to throw their retirement out the window and lose everything because they refuse to get the vaccine because of their religion. And through this, we also got a lot of leaked military documents, which I spent a long time reading through, and it looks like this is actually within the policy, that they were not going to recognize religion. And through this as well, I went deeper, and I found that this is not limited to COVID-19. COVID-19 is the most visible part of this, but religious discrimination in the military goes into things like forbidding people to invoke the name of their God. You can't say God, Jesus, for example, publicly. You have to use what they call pluralism, or you can face different kinds of punishment. And there's even more to it than that. This is a very big issue where the military itself seems to be undermining religious liberty. And it seems as well the military is going to start there, and we see the writing on the wall that it's spreading.
How did this start? I mean, so you think about this country, where we were historically, going all the way back to 1776. There was a great awakening. This is not only a Christian nation, but a Protestant Christian nation, by and large. Well over 90% of the populace was Protestant Christianity. You look at where we are now. I mean, I would say the military history, military tradition, great generals and leaders who are all religious and promoted religious liberty. I'll never forget Dwight D. Eisenhower becomes president in 1952, and he says, America needs religion, and he pointed to the Christian faith. He gets baptized on Christmas Day as the President of the United States. Now, some people, as we're talking, even about that, I don't know, is that inference, in history, was that like a born-again experience that Dwight D. Eisenhower had? I don't know. But I do know, as the American president, that he embraced Christianity. He didn't reject it. And we have this rich military history with faith is always intertwined. How did we get to this point?
So it's funny you talk about a lot of the history of America, and I've been doing some research for a big project I'm working on. I won't talk about it just yet, but I would say the story of America starts about 300 AD with the Council of Nicaea, I believe it was, and really the establishment of a standardized interpretation of religion. Because what really was the catalyst of the start of America was these individuals who were Protestants, as you mentioned, and who said, no, I want to be able to interpret the Bible and interpret religion as I understand it. I'm not going to listen to people who I may not agree with politically, and I think they're politicizing the religion, and I believe they're taking it in the wrong direction. The old Bibles, the ones the Pilgrims had coming across the United States, were filled with side notes, actually talking about how the government and the time the Catholic Church, not to say anything bad about them, but at the time how they were violating the tenets of the very religion they were trying to preach. And through violating it and reinterpreting it to cover up their own violations of it, we're altering the religion. And people said, no, that is not what the religion is. That is not how I understand the religion. The foundation of America has always been this idea of religious liberty. That is what America was based on. To be able to say, I believe this is right, I believe that is wrong. And to say, you can believe what you believe is right and wrong, and that's your own business, sir. You know, having that type of religious tolerance, that's what America was.
Yeah. Providence, Rhode Island, one of the first colonies founded on religious liberty, Baptist colony. It's interesting that the Puritans didn't always hold to religious liberty. In the very, very beginning, Massachusetts colony and others, they had required faith in order to hold positions of leadership. They realized you could not actually force faith on people. And so as they were working through that, right, we cannot compel people to believe. And so enshrined in the Constitution in Article 1 is religious liberty. Yet, and I think this is something interesting, Josh, is that as you look at progressive secularism, which I also hold as a religion, it is compelling people to hold to the tenets of that faith, which is a renunciation of your own faith. That's the thing. It's like, no, you can't. You have to be Christian, but only to a point. You have to accept the overarching paradigm of secularism. This is our faith and our standard now in America.
Well, and that's so we're at NRB right now, National Religious Broadcasters, and this I've been having some really interesting discussions around this, and something clicked for me, which is, you know what, we are living under a religious society. It's the religion of socialism, and as you mentioned, it's Dennis Prager has talked to him. It's radical secularism. Radical secularism, where people have defined morality and people have defined meaning in accordance with basically a political religion. That's what communism is. In fact, you could even say communism has actual religious roots, rooted in heretical ideas. You can't get away from people believing in something. You can't get away from people finding meaning in something. You can't get away from people believing that something is right and something's wrong. Right? People naturally have a sense of morality. It's one of the things that define us, I think, as being human. The issue then is what, first of all, how is the government based on this? Because I'd say the government right now that we live under is having this system whispering in its ear and trying to force it on us. But because they can't force it on us, they use the institutions. And what we have right now is really, under cancel culture, like a new inquisition, essentially. And this inquisition that is targeting people who believe in right and wrong and traditional faith. It's an inquisition against people being able to interpret religion as they see it. It's an inquisition against people having morality, because what is the basis of absolute tolerance? Absolute tolerance is an intolerance of anything that has some idea of like right and wrong, because if you have a moral foundation, you're naturally going to believe that this is right, which means you believe something is wrong. And if you believe something is wrong, it means you're a hater, it means you're discriminating, it means all these other things, and they will take you down. This is the new Inquisition.
Yeah, I totally agree. And when you think about, you have done so much deep dive into China's history, their communist revolution, which really started as a cultural revolution.
That's right, yeah.
And they just celebrated their 100 years. Right now in America, we're experiencing something in the West that is similar to what happened in China. Very, very similar. I would say different in that our cultures are different, but similar in the sense that this cancel culture, the social justice movement, critical theory, which has critical gender theory, critical race theory, and others, deconstruction, is doing away with the old and establishing a new paradigm. And in doing that, canceling out faith, because faith is actually like, it is the faith ends up being, and especially the Christian faith, ends up being like the fifth column, and I mean this in a good way, that it holds back. It holds the institution of marriage. It holds the institution of family, right? The church. If you're going to lead a massive cultural evolution and you're wanting supremacy in culture, you want hegemony, those institutions, perennial dominance over society, if you deconstruct them, tear them down, anything goes at that point.
Yeah. Well, this has been explained. Well, first of all, what you're talking about is just Marxism.
Yes.
Communism in general needs to destroy these things. The whole idea of communism is to remake man in man's image. That means the negation of God. This ties into their weird religious roots, actually, which you get in Gnostic faiths and so on, that the destiny of man is to basically recreate themselves because they believe creation was an imperfect thing. They believe God was imperfect, and so the destiny of man is to recreate man in the world in man's image. That's what they're trying to do, and you can see them doing this. But on another level, too, when you talk about the destroying of religion is always the real enemy of this type of tyranny. Because, and this has been explained to me by Chinese friends of mine, and this is how it's been explained, what happened in China. As long as people believe in religion, it means they believe in a power higher than government, one. But it also means they believe in a morality through which they can judge the actions of government. What is the basis of moral judgment, right? Of course, if you're religious, you have your own religious views, which has a moral foundation too. And you can say, no, what you're doing is evil. What you're doing is wrong. I'm not going to go along with it. You can kill me. I believe in a higher power. I believe in the eternal soul. Kill me. I'm not going to go with this stupidity. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's what religious people do, right? Historically, they've done this.
That's right.
But it also means that if you destroy that, what is the basis of morality? The basis of morality becomes government action. That's actually what political correctness is. In 1967, Mao Zedong, head of the Chinese Communist Party, created this concept. That was during the Cultural Revolution when they were killing, rightists, quote unquote, killing landlords, killing teachers. They were destroying what they called the four olds, doing away with the old world, old religion, old beliefs, old cultures, so on, right? They were destroying the old world to create the new world under communism. And the idea of this, political correctness, this cultural, political morality, was based on that. That if you believe what the government's doing, if you believe that's right, then you are culturally correct. You are politically correct, right? You're following the political motive, and you are correct in terms of the politics. That's what it was. And we see that happening in the U.S. right now as well, where if you follow whatever the politics are, and the politics change day by day, you are politically correct. You are safe. You're not going to be canceled. You can keep your bank account. You can keep your social media accounts. You can keep tweeting on Twitter. Don't worry, comrade. As long as you follow it, you're totally fine. But if you start violating it, right, if you go against it, then you're not politically correct. You're going to be taken down one way or another.
Yeah, so conformity is the key towards political action. Whatever serves the revolution, so to speak, it's not a double standard. That is the standard.
That is the standard.
So
That's
it
right.
can flip on a dime.
Which is why you have them able to accept, conflicting ideas even.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Because both of them serve the revolution, whatever that is. Yeah. So let's take it all back home, right? We started out this conversation. We were talking about the issue of religious discrimination, religious liberty in the military. The Pentagon seems to be pressing down on that. It is no doubt in my mind when I see the military brass, the key leadership. These are people, by the way, that don't go on tours of duty, right? Those are like the common folk who enlist. They go on tours of duty. These are people I've seen no action, right? And they're top military brass. Some of them are woke, and they're pushing down this whole, whether it be ESG, CRT, SEL, unconscious bias training, whatever that is. The military has gone full woke, and the biggest enemy right now are people of religious faith.
That's right. Because in the America's military, people of religious faith, in the U.S. military, you have the right? You are sworn to uphold the Constitution. This is a right you have. Well, not only that, you're sworn to do it, right? You are sworn to protect and uphold the Constitution against enemies, both foreign and domestic. You swear an oath to that. And the question is, well, if the government starts violating things, starts violating the Constitution, starts doing things that go against lawful orders, they would call lawful orders, lawful in terms of the Constitution, will you do it? And I think that's been the big test with all this. And they've made them now do something that is really unconstitutional because it goes against religious liberty, and to also do something that's unlawful because it violates the law of the Constitution. And the federal government has been saying, no, this is lawful because I said it's lawful. That it's lawful because I say it's lawful. And whatever I've been told by people that say that they've been told they can no longer have the right to interpret the Constitution. This is for the government to interpret. And that's where it's at right now.
Yes. I want to mention something really important. It just came to mind. There is a movie called Hacksaw Ridge about Dawson Dawes, I believe that's correct, originally from Lynchburg, Virginia, which actually is where Liberty is. He was a Seventh-day Adventist, and this is a Mel Gibson film. It came out maybe 5 years ago. Brilliant in terms of picking up this story, because Dawes was a pacifist, yet he wanted to go to war to protect and defend his brothers in arms as a medic, but he didn't want to fire a gun. And so the whole movie highlights the importance of religious liberty and toleration and discrimination. So basically, long story short, if you've seen the film, it follows very closely the actual biographical details of his life. But he was court-martialed, right? He appeared before a military tribunal. He ended up winning that case. He did go overseas. He ended up saving so many lives over there, became a hero. And what was interesting is that there were those people that in the aftermath of that story were saying, I thought I did the whole time that you were a coward. But then I saw that absolutely no, it was harder to hold the line in what you believed in conviction. Like, this is your faith. No one can compel you to go against your faith. So I have no problem, I will just tell you personally, and others, of picking up a gun, but there are some people that have that issue. It doesn't matter. We might disagree, but you cannot compel somebody to go against their faith or against their conscience. So this is where we are in this country right now. And I thought it was brilliant that Mel Gibson picked that idea, because he was trying to tell a message in the current times by pulling something in the past. It's already happened, and it's going to happen again.
Yeah, well, and I think it's a concerning development as well, because if the military can force people to do things that violate their own convictions, if the military can force people to violate their own interpretation of the Constitution, it means that the military can make people do a lot of other things as well, and that is a frightening concept.
Absolutely. Well, Josh Phillips, thank you so much for joining. Really appreciate everything you're doing at the Epoch Times and American Crossroads. Everybody, please check that out.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Always a pleasure as well.